Hello and welcome to another episode of Innovation Culture Coding. My name is Jens Heitland and I'm your host. It's again time for the live stream, and today we have a very interesting topic. I'm very eager to dive into that together with my guests. The theme of today is result generating innovation, how to innovate through a powerful, structured, and result oriented innovation method. And this show is all about creating a possibility for independent coaches and consultants who are working inside the innovation sphere to be visible and to be shown in a completely different way than you're used to, because I truly believe that the authenticity of individual people is the most powerful argument for you to work with other people, and it's really about people working with people, and that's why I've created this show. And today's guest is Rex Bierlaagh. Hello, Rex.
Hi, Jens.
Great to
Yeah,
have you.
thank you very much. I'm great to be here on your live streaming show.
Yes, so really looking forward to explore your case today. But before we go into the case, tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you and what are you doing?
Yeah, my name is Rex. I'm from the Netherlands, and my company Twinkle is basically helping organizations to invent and to innovate new products and services. And we do that in a way that really teaches them to do it themselves, and also to have results. So that means that you have in the end, like after 5 months or 6 months, you have products that you have validated with your customers, and can actually launch them in such a short period of time. So that's my basic my core business, and together with that, I'm very into creative thinking and serious creative thinking, which of course is combined with my innovation program and with Twinkle.
Yeah, I need to ask the question, how did you get to the name of Twinkle?
Well, if I look at your eyes and mine right now, that's exactly how I got the name. You know, when you deal with innovation, in the broadest sense, the only way it works, and that is my personal conviction and also experience, is when you get twinkles in your eyes. So if you do not have twinkles in your eyes when you work on a project, it's very hard to pursue that project and to actually get there, you know, to have results. So the more energy you have, and the more energy you can keep during the project, the more success you will have. That's my personal conviction, and that's something that I experienced. So when I was thinking about the name of my company, it was just very clear to me it had to be Twinkle. So from getting a smile or getting a twinkle in your eyes.
Yeah, love that. So before we go into the case, I completely forgot to introduce you to the webpage. So heitlandinnovation.com/innovation culture coding is the show page for this show. And there's of course, as every episode, there's a landing page for Rex where you can literally find later on the recording, the audio version, and of course as well smaller clips, the show notes, and a link towards Rex going forward. And we have a couple of people already showing up, which is good. Before we go into the case, let's bring that up. You need to read that. That's literally Dutch, so I have no idea what that's it. You need to translate that.
It says, "Hi Rex, good luck with the show." Well, that's very nice. It doesn't show a name though, but
It's coming now. John.
It's John. That's fun. Yeah, John is a former colleague of mine, and also someone that helps me with my own videos and streaming productions.
Yeah, great. So for everyone who is watching this live, you're welcome to ask questions in between. We will bring that up. It's also great if you could just let us know from where you are watching, which means city, and of course, which platform, because then it's always helpful for us to answer your questions going forward. And as well, go back into the recording when you have questions. You are welcome to as well add them into the chat inside wherever you find it. If you find it on LinkedIn, if you find it on YouTube, if you find it on Facebook, we go in later on and answer your question in case they're coming up after the recording. So let's get into the case. The case we're looking today into is a media company that is on the edge of bankruptcy. So very, very much under pressure. And the owner is looking into developing new products and services for that business. So really looking into how do they reinvent their service offers and their products. But the owner is looking into doing that in a special way, because the owner wants the team to do that, the team to understand how to do that in different ways, the team who is working inside the organization to be empowered in understanding how they can do that in the future and how they can build on top of what they have already done over the last years. So they have hired Rex in helping them, and the owner is giving you 5 months in figuring that out and literally teaching the team. So that's the case, and that's the starting point for our conversation today.
Right.
So let's start very high level. So they're reaching out to you. They're saying, hey, I want you to teach our team. I want you to do that. So how do you start with the totality from zero?
Well, the first thing when the question came, I asked him why he wanted that. And of course, he told me, we need it because we are in an urge of new products and new business. But I always want to know in those cases, why? What is the reason behind that question? Is it only financial reasons, or is there different reasons for that? Do you want to make an impact in the world or in your market? So that's really the why question, and what's behind that. I think it's very important for the leader or the CEO to really have good questions on that, or when there aren't good answers on that yet, to at least start thinking about that, because it defines the success of the whole process. And the second thing I always check when you start really high level is what kind of commitment are you showing to this whole process? This is not some easy thing, right? This is not a walk in the park. You really need to commit from the top to get those things done, and not only to get them done, but to get them done successfully. So those are basically two things that I really dive into in some type of an intake or starting kickoff conversations only with the top, in this case with the director.
Yeah. Now, I think that's really important. I've seen it as well with other people who have been in the show. It's really, if there's no commitment in the beginning, it's like you're set up for failure already from the start, and it's not really helping you to be successful.
Not at all. No. Yeah. So you have to imagine that there's of course a term. You lead by example, and it's so very true. On one hand, it's an open door. On the other hand, with innovation, which is hard, innovation. A lot of people think it's romantic, right? Yes, we're going to be creative and think of new things, etc. But in the end, it's tough and hard and fun work. Of course, it's fun. And which means that if there's no commitment from the top, there's no way that people will actually lead that example. They will think, well, if he's not or she is not interested in it as being in the top, then why should I? Why should I worry about our company if apparently it's not that urgent?
Yeah, get it. So you have this conversation, you figure out, okay, there's commitment. It's working from that perspective. At least you get the questions answered. What is the next step?
Well, the next step is to gather a good team, and a good team is of course a broad thing, right? What's a good team? And with the team, I mean the people you're involving in the whole process. So that's something that I always start with in the intake also. Do you have people who are curious? Do you have people who like to be some type of, well, maybe an ambassador or corporate rebel in your organization? Do you have entrepreneurial types that really like to pursue new ideas and are not scared of failure, for example? So a diverse team, so diversity is another thing within the team, within the people. All kinds of levels, all kinds of ages, and all kinds of functions. The more, the better. At the same time, you don't want a big team.
Yeah.
So you want I'm always looking for 4 to 6 people, and then juggling with all the criteria that I just mentioned, right?
So 4 to 6 people, and as a company, does it then matter of? So if it's an international company, should they be from one country? Should they be at least from one area, or does it not matter?
That depends on the scope, right? In this case, it was a Dutch company. Now imagine when you are working with an international company, it really depends on the scope. If the scope is on one country, then I suppose you can just work with the people in one country. And maybe you shouldn't work with one team of 6 people, but with more teams of 6 people. So sometimes 6 is simply too small, and you need to divide it up in more teams. If you're working in multiple countries, and it's really a product or service that is widely sold in more countries, then of course you need to have cultural diversity also.
Yeah, I imagine that's important to not just have like different people from different parts of the organization, but also if they're, let's say, if we take extremes, Dutch and Chinese, if they have Dutch and Chinese customers, you need to mix that somehow. It's not going to work.
Of course, because they know their customers much better than me as a Dutchman, right? Yeah. And I have no idea how their culture works. Well, a little bit, because I traveled there and I did business there, but I'm not an expert on their culture.
Yeah. So you gather the team, you find out who are the right people to work with. What's the next step?
Well, the next step is to get them aligned on the same vision as the top has, as the directors have. So they also need to know why is he or she or they, the committee, the board committee, doing what they want to do, and why do they want to involve us as a team, and what do they expect from us? So you have to get the expectations right, and also you have to set the boundaries of the types of innovation that you do. So you need to get some type of agreement or commitment on what is our playing field in terms of innovation. Yeah. Are we going to Mars? Are we building a rocket and go there? Or do we like to stay a little bit closer to home, right? Are we going to do more earthy things? Yeah. So incremental versus revolutionary or radical innovation, and anything in between there. So you need to discuss with each other, okay, what types of boundaries are we talking about? And what kinds of resources do we have? So there's some conditions that you need to agree upon with each other before you actually can move on to start the whole process of the whole innovation process.
Yeah. How is it? So I understand you do this with the team which is involved. How do you then align it with the management? Do you do that before, or do you go with the input from the team to the management? How does that work?
Both. I start together with the intake with the board, in which I ask them, why do you want that, and also do you understand the whole commitment thing? I also ask them, do you already know what kinds of criteria you are involving, or do you have a vision on your playing field? Yeah. Now, if they have, that's great. If they don't, and I say, well, let's bring the team in. Let's choose a team. Let's bring them in and do that together. Yeah. So that there's commitment from the team also, and they understand why the choices are made as they are made.
Yeah. So then you said you will start the innovation process. How does that work? How do you go about that?
Well, basically, in my method, I have 5 steps, and it's based on design thinking, but I mix it with lean startup and with business modeling and my own experiences. But I do like the 5 steps. And the first step is always, in my case, with the team. Let's have a look and go talk to customers and stakeholders as soon as possible regarding the questions. So if you're talking about new products or services, where do you start? It's a very broad question already.
Yeah.
So basically what I say, well, let's not do one thing. The one crucial mistake many companies make is say, let's innovate from inside out, right? Let's think of our own ideas, own products, or own technologies, and then make it. And I say, let's turn it around. Let's directly go to stakeholders with this question, and let's have a dive in their daily working lives. Let's see how they work. Let's see why they do what they do. Let's see what they come across, what kinds of problems they come across, what kinds of frictions they feel when they're working with the products of the customer, or broader with media in general, right?
Yeah.
And from there on, we start to figure out what is the perspective of the customer on the whole scope of innovation from the customer that hired me, in this case, the media company.
Yeah. So it's really understanding in depth what's going on the customer side, so that I guess it's the team is then like going out, talking to customers, figuring out what the problems are, and really deep diving into that.
Yeah, they deep dive into it, and this sounds very easy. So I'm saying this just in a couple of seconds, and we're just going out and deep dive and talk with a couple of stakeholders, and then we come back and we go forward. But in fact, this is where the whole learning thing starts. It's a kind of hard to, when you're talking to someone, to not to dive into the other's perspective, right? So basically what I teach them from this point onward is that their own opinion doesn't really matter. Now that's a hard thing to swallow for a lot of people. Because we're basically educated that our opinion is king, right? I mean, I think that, I feel that, and then it's automatically true.
Especially if you are a successful company.
Well, yeah, but as a human being, I mean, of course, also as a successful company. So you need to be thought to be vulnerable, to be open to criticism and to another perspective. But as a human being, it's also very difficult, because basically what I teach them is say, well, you go there open-minded. Of course, you have a script in mind, with questions, with things that you want to know. But let them do the talking, and be seriously curious about what drives them and what is happening with them, and what their problems are, what their challenges are in their working life, and maybe even broader. Depending on the case, of course.
And I guess it's difficult for people. If you build a diverse team, there will be people who have never talked to their customers.
But absolutely, even marketing people, yes.
Yeah.
Or well, salespeople, of course, do talk to their customers. But marketing people, I've had companies that that included marketing people in their teams, and they simply had no clue, which to me is always interesting, because marketing is about customers in my eyes, even if you do online marketing, right?
Yeah. So then they're going out, they're gathering this insights, gathering the knowledge. What are you doing with that?
Well, the knowledge is used to basically get to analyze. So the team is coming back with all that information in their backpack, right? And they come to the company, to the working spot, and they're going to analyze, crunch all the information. And what I'm looking for together with this team is patterns that are visible in that information, and especially patterns of challenges that the people they talk to encountered.
Yeah.
So are there challenges in their working lives, like problems or frictions or maybe even wishes? But it needs to be a pattern. It's not a one-off. Yeah. So if one person says, in my daily working life, I don't look or I don't read anymore, for example, I don't absorb information anymore because it's simply too much.
Yeah.
Well, if it's only one person saying that, well, okay. But if it's about 20 or 30 or 40 people saying that, then we might have a clue of where to go to in the next phase of the innovation process.
Yeah. So you have the patterns, you understand that. What is the next step?
Well, once we have those patterns, it's time to actually build a hypothesis or a question to like a problem statement, an innovation statement on which we go and proceed. So you can imagine from different patterns, you can actually have different statements which apparently are problems for your customers. And in some cases, you have like 40, 50 or more statements that are all analyzed from the big data hub you have.
Yeah.
And then it's a matter of actually choosing which challenges you will start with your innovation process.
Yeah. Can you give an example of an hypothesis for those listeners who have no idea what this could be?
Yeah, I mean, for example, in this case, how they also, this media company also organized events. A lot of people thought it was very hard to come in time in such an event because they had such busy lives, working lives. So one of the hypotheses was, how can we flexibilize? I'm not sure if that's a good English word, but how can we make starting times from events more flexible?
Yeah.
And of course, right now in the whole online world, that can be a solution. But imagine you want to do that with live events again. Now, that can be a hypothesis in which you do not directly have a solution. I mean, there's many things you can think of probably to come with solutions, and this is just one example. Another example is, how can we deep dive in technological information without giving all the technological secrets already. So you have to imagine in this case, in this industry, content is widely available. However, there is a limit, and the limit is there where the real secrets of technology are being given. However, that's the interesting part of it for lots of readers or lots of event visitors. So how can we deal with that issue?
That's great. So you go then into the hypothesis. What are you doing with that?
We choose, because as I said, there's so much information, there's so many hypotheses that you can actually derive from that you have to make a choice. So we're then choosing the hypothesis that best suits the whole scope, so to say. So this the choice to make is also a sometimes a hard thing, because if you have like 50 possibilities, you have to imagine that every hypothesis is a possibility to innovate and to find new solutions.
Yeah.
So the choice you make is crucial for the next part, and still you have to make a choice out of all those from this big list.
Yeah. Do you then narrow it down to 1 or 2 or 5 or 10?
Yeah, I like to work with top 5s. Our brain can deal with about 7 things at the same time, which is investigated and always is the same thing. And I like to narrow it down to 5. So imagine you have a list of 50 possible directions that you can innovate in. I like to start with the top 5 because you still do not want to exclude the best things. And the top 5 is, in my experience, something that you can really work with.
Yeah, I get that. My brain only works with 2.
Well, yeah. Well, you see, so some of our brains work with 2, and then I say, well, you know what, Jens, let's expand a little bit. Let's go with 5, which does help. Yeah. Because you can imagine that a couple of them are not valid enough, are not good enough in the end. So then you still need a couple of things that you can actually pursue on.
Yeah. So how do you take this questions hypothesis then to the next level? How do you then test them? How do you do that?
Yeah, I do test them. So if we choose them, well, let's go back to the stakeholders and say, thank you very much. Great thing. Thank you for your time. This is what we derived from all the conversations. What do you think? Is is this something that touches base to you? Is this something that triggers you? Is this something that intrigues you? Or is this something that makes you happy when we would solve it for you? Now, of course, we do this again with many stakeholders because we want to be as sure as possible that we have good directions that we can pursue on. And when we have done that round, and then we're probably either we stick with those 5, or we found out that only 3 are the best ones. Well, then we go on with the 3, and then I take 2 from the reserve list to add on the 5, because I really want to go on with 5 at the same time.
Mm-hmm. Do you then validate them as well with the customers?
I want to validate all those hypotheses before I go to the next round. Yeah. So this is not a linear process. It's very important to say. The way I tell it now, it sounds like it's very linear. No, it's not. It's really, you start somewhere and then you go on, but you may find that you have to go back to the first round, or even to the first step, right?
Yeah, I guess that's, if you come from an organization which has never done something like this, I guess it's painful for the people, because they start, they're used to, hey, I have the opinion and my opinion counts, and then a customer is saying to you, like, hey, I don't care at all.
No, exactly. They say, I don't care at all, and painful is the right word. So we do have evaluations or reflections with the innovation team and the people involved, especially about this. So social innovation is a big part of the whole process, the method we use. Yeah. I mean, it's really a tough thing to swallow that a customer thinks different than you do as an expert in your field.
Yeah.
And that is something on a social level, on an empathic level to learn and to deal with.
So if I understand you right, it's not just, so the company has double benefit. So they have a benefit of like developing services and product, and the benefit that the staff, the people are getting educated and kind of learning this methodology and learning themselves as well, how to talk and how to go about these things.
Yeah, I've even heard sometimes that the biggest benefit was the last one you just mentioned, because of the entrepreneurial. Basically, what people encounter and what they learn is that they learn to be creative, they learn to be curious, they learn to be open, they learn to be vulnerable, they learn to accept that their opinion is not the best one, which is all part of an entrepreneurial mindset. Yeah. And the whole entrepreneurial mindset thing is of course very important nowadays and is being talked about a lot. However, it's not being dealt with a lot of times. And if you go through such a process, the benefit is absolutely double. So on product services level, so the hard business level, but also on the so-called soft level, the people level.
Yeah. So you're testing this. You're coming back with the insights from the customers, and you said you will add if they're devaluating some of them, and so that you go into the next phase with 5. What is the next phase about?
Yeah, the next phase is really one of my favorites. They're all favorite because I love the process. But this next phase is creative thinking. So imagine that you have chosen 5 directions. So 5 opportunity directions to go work on. And they are already validated with your stakeholders. So they're really valid. They're good directions to go from. Then we start with creative thinking techniques and creative thinking to actually find possible solutions or solution directions to those hypotheses. So we divide the teams up, or the team up, depending on how many people actually we work parallel or one team together. And I teach them to think out of their normal patterns. And I teach them and I learn them a couple of techniques to really go out of the patterns and to find new solutions that they actually haven't thought about. And this, of course, is an important phase because the solutions the possible solutions or possible ideas they find, they think of, is the basis for possible successful products or services.
Yeah. So you get them into creative mood, understanding of like coming up with a lot of ideas. What are you doing with, let's say they come up with 100 ideas or more? What are you doing with that? How do you do that?
Well, the more ideas, the better. I always say one idea is no idea. The more, the better. And what do we do with them? Imagine we take, depending on the scope and the size of the whole process, of the whole project, I want at least 500 to 1,000 ideas. So with this big amount of ideas, you need to converge, you need to choose, you need to analyze what's all there. So the first process is divergent, right? Divergent thinking, which basically means broad thinking, as many as possible. Yeah. And in the end, when you have all those ideas, then 2/3 of the time within this phase is spent on actually choosing and selecting. And when you've done that, again, you will find a top 10, well, in this case, a top 10 of ideas, which of course, many, many more. But the top 10 is then something that I'm looking for.
What's happening with the top 10?
The top 10 is gold. It's diamonds. It's possible pearls. It's possible, money. What we do with the top 10 is basically we have to develop them further. Ideas is raw material. Lots of people think that ideas are directly the products of services. No, they're not. You still need to work on it. You need to build on it. You need to test it. You need to validate it already in that phase also. So basically what I say always is from those 10 ideas, let's see if we can make a product concept or a service concept from that by looking at all the other ideas and build on that top top 10 idea. Yeah. So can we make it better? Can we make it more realistic? Because what I do with the top 10, I want them to include, when they choose the ideas, I want them to include the real crazy ideas also. Yeah. So if you do not manage our mind correctly, we choose the ideas that we think are feasible.
Yeah, right? I was about to say.
Yeah, and if you don't manage that process right, well, the only thing they do after like days of hard work and thousands of ideas to say, that one is feasible, that one is doable tomorrow, this one we can do today. Well, that's a top 3. Yeah. Well, guys, that's not good enough. I mean, actually, that's not good enough at all, Yeah. Which doesn't mean they're not valuable ideas. Right. But if you really want to innovate and think of new ideas, you need to choose the far out ideas. I always call them Martians. You need to choose the Martian ideas. And from there on, from the Martian ideas, you need to get them more concrete, specific. You need to get them more to earth. And there's still a couple of steps to take for your mind to understand that crazy ideas are actually workable, but you need to learn how.
Yeah, I can imagine it's particularly hard if you work long term in an organization and then you're, like you said, you have most probably already had 200,000 ideas because you work, let's say, 5-10 years in a company, and you always put them into your desk somewhere. And then when you have the possibility like brainstormings, then you put all the good ideas you have had over the last 20 years on the table.
Right. Which actually happens, Jens. They come prepared, and so in the first round, I always call it a brain dump, which for the creative people that are watching here know exactly what it is. You simply have to, get all the ideas out without using a thinking technique, just the things you already had in your head. Yeah. Well, the prepared ones come exactly with their drawer of ideas, and they say, "Here, Rex, this is all we have, and I think this is a good one. So do we need to proceed from there on?" I say, yes, thank you so much for your input. And maybe we should indeed find a couple of more ideas. But that happens. So the challenge here is to get people's minds actually into their old childhood mode, right? Into their plainness mode. In the back, you see a couple of drawings on the flip over. And that's the environment that I would like to create during those sessions. So playfulness, feeling safe, that you can actually be an adult child to really go out and find the ideas that you've never dared to mention to your colleagues, because they probably think you're crazy then, right? That's the environment I want to create.
Yeah, especially, I guess, coming from the corporate world myself, it's not coming only with the ideas where you know that the board or someone of the management will definitely say yes to, because that's not going to move the needle at all.
At all, and that's the big challenge, of course. So the board needs to be. That's why the commitment thing that we started out with is very important. I explained them the whole process, and like in 10 to 20 minutes, I explained them the different steps, and I say this particular step, number 3. I want all your employees to be a child again. Then they look at me like, okay, he's a little bit. I'm sorry. Can you explain again? And then, of course, I explain why I say that. I really explain that. And then if they grasp that concept of working with Martian ideas, with crazy ideas, and then bring them back to Earth so that you're out of your normal patterns, then they are more open to the pitches we do during the process. Because, of course, we have different milestones that we want to present to them. And in this phase, we present to them the chosen 10 ideas. And if they wouldn't have had my explanation, they would probably have sent all of them home because they thought they became completely crazy, right? Yeah.
So that's cool. So you do the like you're building literally first product or service concept ideas where kind of merge these things together, but you stay with the 10 still, right?
Right. Yeah. Again, I want to. So we moved from 5 hypotheses to 10 possible ideas. And with those 10 ideas, I want to see what are the serious possibilities. What are the concepts we can make of those 10 ideas? Sometimes we cluster them, but sometimes we actually say, well, this one idea together combined with a couple of other ideas might be this concept if we look back at the frictions or the challenges we would like to solve for the customer. So sometimes we come with 10 different concepts, and sometimes we say, well, if we combine it like this and this, we have 2 or 3, and then we continue with 2 or 3. But I never go on with only one, because I know in the end that when you start validating things again and testing with your stakeholders, there will always be a couple that are simply not good enough.
So then you mentioned that you're presenting them. Is then the team going to the management or to the steering committee, whatever is decided in that company, to pitch it like startups are doing it, or how do you organize that event?
Yeah, it's like startups. However, the big difference here is it's not a sales pitch, it's a feedback pitch, right? So it is to let them know, to inform them of what they've done and inform them of where they stand and inform them of the great ideas that they have thought of. And not to get their approval. It's not to get more resources at that moment in time, because that's something that we agreed upon before we even started, right? So this is really to get feedback and to get some remarks in terms of, wow, this is great, and have you thought of that? But not the buts, right? The buts. But are you sure this is going to work? But we have tried that 30 years ago when you were still young, all those buts that you get. That's not the purpose. It should be a constructive, positive reflection round with constructive criticism, so that we know at that point of time where the whole process stands in that company.
Do you then brief the decision makers or the management team members before they go into that meeting? I can imagine, like, if you do this in the beginning, let's say it's 5 weeks ago, they have forgotten it. They just go in as normal. It's like, no, this is not going to work. Are you doing something?
Yeah, I brief them on every step. And certainly with those steps, I brief 2 things. I brief the steering committee or the board or the director however big it is, and I brief the team, and I do that separately, right? I want them to be on the same thinking level, at least if that's possible, you know. But that's my goal, that they are on the same thinking level.
Yeah. So then they go in, they get feedback inside of that presentation, feedback pitch. What's happening next?
Well, they go back, and obviously they've had some great feedback from the steering committee, also already from the stakeholders. But that's where we stand now. So if they come back from that presentation and they had feedback, I want them to validate the concepts. And I want them to go back and talk again to the stakeholders and say, you know, thank you so much. We have thought of this possible product or service. Is this something that you would actually be able to work with? And there's different validation rounds. The first one is simply like this. Just call them, or preferably visit them and say, this is what we have found. This is what we have thought of. What do you think? And again, not to sell it, but to get feedback. The next round is within this phase. This is phase 4 or step 4. The next round is that I ask the team to use that feedback to actually prototype it, to make it, to build it. And I prefer really crappy prototypes. So really like working with Lego or working with paper and, you know, things like that. It doesn't need to be perfect yet. That's simply not possible. You're a long way from there yet. But make it more visual and possible already with some experience elements in it, so that a customer or stakeholder can actually experience what you mean. Right. And then go back again and get more feedback. And that's an iteration. So you repeat that a couple of times, as long as it takes to get a grip and to get an understanding on the things that you invented. Yeah. So if you've done that 4 or 5 times, you know that this is something that customers buy in to. Because you will also ask the 3rd time or the 4th time, you know, how much is this to you in terms of value? So how on a level from 0 to 10, and 10 is the highest. So this is a Dutch scale. 10 is the highest. Yeah. How would you validate this concept in terms of value for your daily business? Now, questions like that. And if all the questions that we ask are highly marked, then you can imagine that you have something that you can work with and that you can ask money for.
Yeah. So it's literally, you help them with this process to be clear that whatever they're developing will work afterwards. It's not just, hey, it's a paper tiger, like we say in German. I'm not sure if that works in English. Yeah. It's like, hey, we have developed something which looks awesome. Yeah. But then you put it into the market and it's not working.
No. You know, my method is called result-oriented, result-generating innovation, because I want it to be a result in the end when I leave the company. Yeah. And the result lays in the fact that it's being tested and validated a couple of times. If you do not validate your concept, then how do you know that a customer will actually buy it? Yeah. Or lease it, or rent it, whatever your business model is. So I help them and I teach them how you can do this. Yeah.
So you do these iterations, you do tests, you do prototypes. What is the next step?
Well, the next step, if customers say that one of those top ideas is really the top idea, then we go and actually build it. We leave the prototype phase and we say, well, you know, let's just, in case of the event company or the media company, let's make a mini event, online, offline, doesn't really matter, or both, hybrid. Or if it's about a website or an app or a certain content type, maybe very technological white papers, I don't know. Let's just find a launching customer and make a couple of them, and let's test in the market if all the things we prototyped is really working, because still you're not sure yet if you're only sure when the money is in your account, right?
Yeah.
So cash is king. I've learned that a lot of time with my earlier education. So when you actually have your first invoice sent for that new product, you know that it's working. Well, not with the first invoice, but with a couple of them, right?
Yeah.
So build it, make it, and sell it, but sell it focused. So choose your customers to so better isolate the first selling sessions than going big yet. And from there on, listen to them, find feedback again, and then move upward in the market.
Yeah. So it's still not stopping, if I understand you right, with this validation. You still do that on an ongoing base.
Yes. Well, I teach them to do it. And in the end, they like the process because they know it works and they see it works. It's not for nothing. It's not because I want to have more delay in the whole process. This has to be done in 5 months, right? Which is fast for most companies.
Yeah.
Normally, it takes them years or a year, and then they find out that it didn't work and they start again. So all those steps we have taken in 5 months. And after 5 months, I want it to be validated, tested, and hopefully sold a couple of times already. And then in the end, I have to let them go, right? And they have to do it themselves. And during the whole process, if they have understood what it is to not only listen to themselves, but listen to the other one, the stakeholder or the customer, then they also understand that the whole testing and prototyping works like that. They're not surprised anymore. They're just listening and asking good questions at this period of time about the thing they invented.
Yeah. So you do this, if we just go back, you do this with, you said, like 4 to 6 people who are chosen in the beginning, like a smaller team.
Yeah.
Right. You go through all the different steps. So the main 5 steps, you educate them, and together with them produce products or services, really, and sell them in the best case, or should be sold.
Yeah. In the best case, we sell them. With the launching customer, so to say. So I always say you have to find a launching customer, and the fun thing here is that during the whole process, when you co-create with your stakeholders, I've never seen so far that there is not one customer who says I'm not going to do it. You take them with the process. So there's always one that stands up, and often more that say, well, this is great. Please let me pay. Well, no, I'm exaggerating, but there are customers that say, no, I like the process. I know it's working. Let's go. Let's try it out. And then you can start from there again to move up the market.
Yeah. So do you then as well? So one part is this is now implemented, but I can imagine that a company which is bigger, if you just have 4 to 6 people who are knowledgeable of that, it's hard to get it into the rest of the organization. So they kind of still fight against, I always say, the internal immune system.
Yeah.
Because they have been trained now in a completely different way. They have like almost brainwashed in a way that they can do things in a completely different way, and it hopefully was successful. How do you get that into the other organization and as well keep it alive?
Yeah. One of the things during the process of those 5 months is that you really communicate well with the mass. I always call it the rest of the company.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't talk in they and them and etc. But you have to. It's the same as that I sometimes read or talk to companies who say, we have an innovation team in our company. Well, there's an innovation team, and then everyone sits in their chair and looks at the innovation team for things to come. Yeah. Well, that's not the way it works, right? That's simply not possible. You have to deal with departments that actually have to implement things that you just invented. Yeah. So before we start, I also, with the leadership, I ask them who else in the company should be involved during the milestone presentations when we have actually found things, when we have actually invented, tested, validated products or services. Who else should be there? Should finance be there? Should development be there? I don't know. So the milestone presentations are not only for the C-suite or for the director or the entrepreneur in charge. Yeah. Different people, different heads from different departments should be there. Otherwise, it's just like you say, another one bites the dust, right? In terms of you have found this new product and it just kind of goes down. So you need to involve your company. You need to involve different teams that will actually help and are needed with the actual implementation.
Yeah. And I guess if it's going well, if the team is proud about what they're doing, they're kind of infecting the others as well.
The sparkle, the twinkle in your eyes is doing the job, right?
Yeah.
So if the team is doing those presentations and they are, have definite twinkles and smiles in their eyes, and there's nothing as contagious as enthusiasm, right? And of course they need to be critical. You can't just, if you have a very enthusiastic team, you can't just say yes to everything, but it is contagious, and yes, the energy needs to be there. And when the rest of the company, or at least the people present, grasp that, it's much easier to actually implement and to get through the thresholds that you will find. There's always thresholds that you will find. There's always things that do not work. There's always people that say, nonsense, I'm not working that way, or I'm not doing that, or it's not good for the company, whatever arguments they have. So yes, it's important that you get those people into the milestone presentations, and that you get as much energy in those people as possible.
Yeah, and that fits perfectly to one of the comments we got. So the Internet Marketing TV channel saying, we have hired Rex and it was a great experience.
Yes.
And then the next one was as well from that colleague, straight to the point. So that shows it's working.
It is working. Yes, of course it's working, and it's also fun. I like doing this. I enjoy it. It's remarkable if you work with people for 5 months, that they can actually be very creative, much more creative than they ever thought they could be.
Yeah.
And that the C-suite actually thinks, wow, this is incredible. I didn't know our company was so creative. Those are the things you get back from them, right?
That's great. So as one part in the end, because we're reaching the end of the live show.
I see already. Yeah.
And we're always asking, is like, who is your dream customer? Can you give a little explanation about your dream customer?
I think I'm working with a dream customer right now. It's a customer working in an IT environment who really believes that people are key. And this sounds like an incredible open door, but this company really has everything in place to let their people work the way they want. They do have targets, but they are not, only a small part is actually rewarded on those targets. The biggest part of the company is not. So the intrinsic motivation, their own motivation to do the best for their customers is first. And that's really an incredible, those are incredible people and an incredible mindset to work with and to find new things.
Yeah.
On the other hand, just like you, Jens, I come from an Anglo-Saxon corporate background. So I also enjoy working with people, technical companies who are really convinced of their technical expertise, and then bring them on the other side of the spectrum and say, yes, you're right, you are the expert. However, there's also people that actually have to work with your products. So what do you think if we bring them together? So it sounds a little bit schizophrenic maybe, but both types of customers I like to work with.
Yeah, I can see that, because it's a slightly different challenge for you, because you need to motivate, you need to engage with them in different ways, and that also challenges you and keeps you up the toes.
Right. Because the other type of company that that are really working from the people side already, I have to challenge them on different things. I still have to challenge them on creativity, right? Or I still have to challenge them on do you really take the perspective of the other person? Are you sure about that? Let's test it. Let's see how it goes. Now, so you have different learning points and different points in the innovation process to look to. So I'm still challenged there, but on complete different points.
Yeah, great. So that's it.
That's
A
it
wrap.
already. I was just starting, gents.
Yeah. No, yeah, I could go on for another hour. No, I really like your process, because I'm a process thinker as well, and it's very clear to me. I was writing like 4 pages notes. I've learned a lot, um, and it's really beautiful to see you twinkle in the eye as well when you talk about it, because it's really something. It's like you live it, and I think that's important when you are a service provider who is helping companies, who is working with people, that you can bring that over as well.
Thank you, Jens. And I have small eyes, but you do see the twinkles, right?
Yeah. So for everyone who is watching this, or listening to the recording, or watching the recording, go to the website, which is heitlandinnovation.com. I will just switch on the banner the last time, /innovation culture coding. There's the landing page where you can find Rex, where you can find the videos, where you can find the audio version, where you can find details about Rex, and of course as well a link towards Rex to get in contact with him, the 5 steps, and everything we talked about today. So, and of course, this show is there to give you an opportunity to understand who Rex is, how he's working, and that also means you're welcome to contact him and ask him if he's maybe doing this process together with you in your business. So that's what it is all about. Thank you very much, Rex, for being on the show. It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you, Jens, for the opportunity. I love to do it.
Yeah, and for everyone watching still live, thank you for watching, and see you. When is the next live one? I'm going live tomorrow, but the real Innovation Culture Coding live is next week, and next week I will go live 3 times. So see you next week, and have a great weekend. Thank you very much.